positive relational models, such as these, work best in these one-on-one relationships, the me to you and me to here, whether it's me and my boss, me and my direct report, or the employee to my left and right. I'm also a member of a, pause, tangent again, I'm a member of a traditional motorcycle club. We call ourselves a brotherhood. I'll tell you, the brotherhood doesn't exist in that organization. I'm also a Mason, and we are brothers. And I would tell you the brotherhood doesn't exist there either. And in a church where we say that we're brothers in Christ, brotherhood doesn't exist there, because brotherhood only exists one place, or sisterhood, or family connection. Between me and thee, and you and they. It only is a one-way, one bond. But if we have this, and you have it, and we have it, now we have a small net. And I have it with you, and you have it with him. And now it's starting to build a relational net, a framework, a web. And that is what organizations like all the ones that I'm part of do. They give you the context, the opportunity to build those one-on-one relationships. And that is where leadership does its best jobs. Slide. Please. We talked about all of those, and I had some references to more nerds making more studies. I'm going to move on from that. Slide, please. So, had to cough. Micro leadership principles. These is one of my big takeaways I want people to get anytime that I'm talking, anytime I'm having a conversation with you, if I'm ever writing something. Everybody has a story. Every story is connected. Everybody writes the best story they can with what they have at the time. And everybody is responsible for writing their own story. It seems incredibly simple, but when we break it down and find out these pieces and parts, then we actually identify why this is so critical. Slide. I like Legos. On the original slide form, there's a picture of Legos, which are a registered trademark, and I would have had to actually pay for rights to use them. But when you're building with Legos, I've got now a 19-year-old and a just turned 16-year-old, and we still all love Legos. Now there's some awesome ones that make guitars and houses that are so detailed, it's ridiculous. But the beauty of it is there's only so many different kinds. There's only so many different colors. There's more now, but when I was 6 or 7, there was blue, red, white, green, and yellow. That was about it. And there was the 1 or the 2, the 4, 6, and then the long flat ones. That's about what we had. Or maybe it was just because I was broke. Same thing with stories. Every story is made up of the same 4 parts, regardless of what the story is. Every story has people. Every story has places. Every story has problems. And every story has processes. Now, if you're thinking of stories like The Lion King, there's no people in Lion King. There's anthropomorphized, so they're characters. I'm just lumping them in with people. And when it comes to people, there's only 4 flavors in the story. Yeah, let's make sure I counted that right. I try not to do math in public. There's the victims, the villains, the villagers, and the heroes. Now, the victims are the people that things happen to. Stuff happens to us all the time. What we decide to do after that makes us either the villain, the villager, or the hero. The villain takes the things that happened in his story or her story and makes sure that other people goes through it because they had to go through it. How many people have worked with or for someone like, it sucked for me, so and it did me good. Well, guess what? No, it didn't. It was rough and I turned out all right. No, you really didn't. I promise you. Then there's the villagers, the not my problem. 9 times out of 10, when you're listening to somebody else's story, you're probably a villager. you may want to be the hero, and a lot of times there's an opportunity to step in. But I know I've stepped in a lot of times, and I've actually made it worse by being the hero in a story in which I was not written. So those are all a bunch of talks for later, because I want to focus on the important piece of these stories, people. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the other three: places, problems, and processes. In every place in a story, it's either a home, it's a hospitable place, it's harsh, or it's hell. Those are the four kind of places in every story. Then we've got problems, either a resource problem, a requirement problem, or an environment problem. I don't have something, I have too much of something, I can't do a thing, or the environment doesn't let me do it. And then there's processes, functional and dysfunctional. It's about as simple as that gets. Slide. But the reason why people are most important in this, in my opinion, is because people make the place, the behavior of people. The decisions of people cause the problems, and the skills that people have create the processes. But you won't have a place without people. You can have a desert, but then it's really nothing. How many people have worked someplace and they said, what's great about it? How many people have said the wallpaper? Or I love the plants they have in the lobby. I have never said that I liked my desk. Whenever asked whether I like what I'm doing for work, I have the same answer every time. Well, it may not be the same answer, but it has the same basis. I really like the people I'm working with. People you work with make the environment. And that's why, one of the reasons why I'm really into the disc, because it helps you understand the people. Slide. Now we're going to get into the disc piece. How many folks have actually taken the disc assessment? All right. So we're going to talk then a little bit about, dive deeper into how it works and why it works. And for those that haven't, get to tell you a little bit more about it. I have other notes on here that I didn't put in a slideshow, so I'm just going to hide that behind there so it looks like I'm working on my computer. The first part about the DISC assessment is it works on the entire principle of what's called a Johari window. And if you can imagine a box split into four corners, and in one corner is where I know things that you don't know. In this corner is you know things. I know things about me that you don't know. You know things about you that I don't know. You know things about me that I don't know. And I know things about you that you don't know. These are called the blind spots. So we all have them. That's why most of us really dread those 360 reviews, because if we're being honest about it, we could probably give it to somebody that is going to point out one of our weaknesses. And if we're not ready for it, that's going to hurt. But the smaller we can make these windows on each side, the more the window actually opens. And when, here in Georgia, particularly in the spring or fall, not necessarily the summer, when you open up the window, cool air comes in, right? So we can actually get stuff done with that. And the entire basis for using the DISC assessment is, as a team, I take it, you take it, and if we're sitting doing a training for it or something, and now we all go, here's my score, here's my what I am. Oh, I didn't know you were that. That makes sense now. I'm also a big fan of the Myers-Briggs, but I'm not certified or qualified to really talk about that, so I would have to just hint at it. But when we take a DISC assessment, that gives us the opportunity to actually open that window. What the DISC measures is our tendencies and behaviors in given situations. My particular one is the Maxwell DISC, coming from John Maxwell, his company. But it focuses in three different areas. how you behave on a regular basis under normal day to day, what you do. Then they have another portion of the test that measures what you do under stress. These are the default behaviors that I'm going to go into. And then there's the how you see yourself. How I like to think that I am a leader, but really I am a follower. And there's nothing wrong with that so long as you know what you are. I am a supporting staff. I believe that I'm up front, but I'm probably not. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But again, it's your behaviors in each of those situations. And our behaviors come from our personalities. Our personalities come from three basic building blocks as well. It's all about Legos. I'll talk about Legos a lot more. I'm looking for the actual ages here. Okay. So three things that are where behavior comes from: our heredity, our genes, our role models, and our environment. But there's a window for each of those. Heredity, we're born with that. There's nothing we can do. It can't be shaped, and probably good. Our role models, up to age 12, whatever that role model was in your life up to age 12, that is pretty much either what you're going to try to be or try to be the opposite of. If you had a positive role model, you want to be like that. If you had a less than positive role model, then you want to be whatever it is that they aren't. And I've had role models on both sides. That's up to age 12. After age 12, the behaviors based on role models, the behavioral change from role models is going to be a lot less. Not impossible, but it's going to be a lot less. Your experiences that you have, experiences in your environment, after age 8, the stuff that happens within your environment, the things that you do, the trips that you've taken. If you took your kids to Disney World at age 6, good for you. I'm sorry, it was a miserable place. It's not the most happy place on earth, particularly for parents. But that probably didn't shape any of their behavior nearly so much. But after age 8, which is around what, second grade, third grade?
Third grade.
Third grade. So, and that makes perfect sense. After age 8, third grade, that's when your behavior starts shaping. And the reason why I'm saying that makes sense, I remember my third grade teacher that I'm not going to talk about, and the negative experiences that I had there, which have shaped. And I've gone to therapy for, I promise you. But those three things, those are what shape our behavior. As it relates to behavioral analysis, people since time immemorial have said this same thing. And I know you've looked at somebody at Walmart and thought this. You've looked at somebody at work and you've worked at somebody in the pews and said, I wonder why they're like that. Behavioral analysis. Well, even our smart people way back 444 BC, they were thinking the same thing. Why doth he do this? I don't even think it would have been in Greek, and I don't know how to say it in Greek. Empedocles in 444 BC was the first that we know of to attribute behavior to something external. And he did the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. Some combination of those made people behave in either a passionate way or a chill way or whatever. A couple years later, 400 BC, Hippocrates did the same similar principle, but instead talked about the humors: sanguine, melancholy, and I forget the other 2 because I don't use them. Fast forward to the 1920s, not the 2020. I now have to start saying the 1920s. I used to be able to say just the 20s. We have Carl Jung and William Marston. Carl Jung, big into symbolic psychology, things that are in the subconscious coming forward. And William Marston was also associated with that. And that is roughly what the disc came out of. Slide. So what the DISC assessment is a diagnostic and predictive test and methodology, a behavioral assessment tool and methodology. It provides a series of questions. I think the last 2 or 3 I've taken about 15, maybe 20 minutes if you're paying attention. They're simple questions. Which are you most like and which are you least like? And they'll give a list of behavior and what you're most likely to do or least likely to do. And you'll rate it 1 to 4. 1 is your least like, 4 is your most like. Which describes you the best. And then there's going to be the 2 that don't. Some of the questions are going to be like, I'm all of those things. The others, I'm none of those things. But those are the ones that end up taking forever, particularly if you're an overthinker. Is anybody in here an overthinker? Our Overthinkers Anonymous meeting will happen, in 2 weeks, but I haven't figured out how we're going to get there yet. So we've got these 4 questions, and once the score comes in, it's graded on 2 axes. I want to make sure I'm, again, calling it correct. Task or active, passive, task, and people. So your extroversion orientation and your activity orientation. So in the upper registers, in the red and orange, or red and yellow up there, or red and orange, depending on your angle, that is going to be the more outgoing personalities. They're the ones who are more likely to reach out, to talk to people, to get to know folks, or to take direct action. The bottom 2, the more introverted, they're more likely to be happy in a quiet environment. They're more likely to be sitting behind the books, behind the desk, and not necessarily want to get up on stage. I actually am an introvert. I am in the bottom half of that. I love performing, though. I love getting up on a stage when I'm acting for things, and I love talking to people. It just, when I'm done doing something like that after a full day of it, I'm lucky that I can make it back to the hotel because I will pass out. Then on the other side, we have our orientation, task orientation or people oriented. To the left, on my left, oh yeah, your left too. So to the left, we have the task orientation, the folks that get stuff done, make it happen, make it happen, make it happen. Black and white, it is right or it is wrong. The other side, people oriented. I want to get to know people, make people important, I want to get after this. I'm a mix. My score on this, by the way, is a mix of the C, S, and I, which is, we'll talk a little bit later about some funky things there, but I'm not any one of those, but I take the test periodically because I've been going through a change in my life, from retiring from the military, changing environments, now having teenagers, and we're starting to get close to the empty nest years. So, my behavior is going to be changing based off of what I know is expected of me in my environment. And hopefully I fix that at some point in time. But when we get done with this test, after all of that, we're not taking the test today, by the way. You end up with 4 basic behavioral categories: dominant, influencing, steady, or compliant. We're going to talk about those in a moment. And you can either be a solid one of any of those or a combination. Common combinations would be the D and C, the things that you would make sense. The things that are all together on one side or all together on the other. Very, very rarely are you going to have a 2-letter combination that goes crisscross, because those are polar opposites in many ways. Doesn't mean they don't exist, but it means that they're more difficult to find. When we understand these things, when we understand what drives people's behavior, the things that they want to do and don't want to do, that gives us what I call sticks and levers, or carrots, levers and buttons, or sticks and carrots. The things that make us do the stick, we want to avoid. The carrot, we want to go towards the environment we want to be more like. So now we're going to get into Was there any questions about some of that before I get into actually talking through the different styles?
Would you mind asking it on the mic so people?
The assessment by Maxwell, how comparable is it to, because I took one recently by TTI Learning Center out of Atlanta, I believe the company is.
The principle and the theory behind all of it is exactly the same. So if your what did yours say you are?
What's that now?
What did your score come out? What is your type?
It was between, on the matrix, it was between the S and the I cell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would, if you took the Maxwell test, you would have almost the exact same score, depending on the day. But the method behind it, the math behind it, the structure, there's no change. What makes the Maxwell test different is on the back side, what we end up doing with it, how we can help you with it, and then the training and assistance that comes after. So the test itself, same test. I actually have I don't remember if it's a free or like a 99-cent app on my phone that is not John Maxwell, but it is a kind of a disc cheat sheet, as it were. So slide, please. So that's an eye chart up there. So I'm going to talk through it. That's really just to say that there's something on the slide in the back. The original slide shows 34 megs. So I wanted to shorten it so we could email it. Talking about the D style, we're going to start with that. When we're looking at the D style, this is the dominant. This is the power player. They like to be in charge. They're going to be decisive, going to be direct. They do what we call multitasking. However, neurologists, possible, it's actually just rapidly switching between things. I digress. Another D. They are the ones that are going to say, go. They expect to be respected. And don't tell them what you're going to do, just do it. The higher the D score, the more active and intense the person is going to be in trying to overcome obstacles. The lower the D score, the greater the tendency they're going to have to gather data first. They're going to want to know more before they do. High Ds, think or act before you think. Low Ds, think before you act. Somewhere in the middle, we all like to have a balance, but we also have our own personal tendencies. When you're talking with a D, you want to be brief and to the point. Don't get into a story. Don't get into personal stuff. You want to get after what it is you're there for, and then be brief, be brilliant, be gone. And I realize that's what all speakers should do. So I'm going to apologize for all three of those until I'm out of here. But the things that we love about them, they want to take the lead, but they want to get it done. They are risk takers. They want to talk solutions. They don't want to talk problems. They want to highlight, when you're talking to them, you want to highlight the benefits of what you're going to propose, not necessarily what it is that you're proposing. And they prefer to motivate others to act. They will lead from up there. The things that drive us crazy about Ds, by the way, when you're working with somebody who is a D, they do tend to dominate. They don't just, there's a phrase that, since I have a 19-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter, when we're in the car or anywhere, I have to constantly remind my son to stop man-spreading, because we like to take up a lot of space. And taking up space is a way of dominating the situation, a way of showing your dominance. What just happened there? Sorry, my notes just flashed on me. Other things we notice about Ds, they're usually workaholics. They are so task-driven. If they're really high D, they're gonna work. They don't want to talk about it, and they're likely to stay late. And if you work for a D and you got places to be, but he or she's expecting you to be at your desk because they're at their desk, that can cause a miserable situation. They also have a lot of difficulty saying I'm sorry. So, looking for other notes that I have on that that'll be of particular care. When we're talking about, well, I'm structuring that different. Let's move to I's. When we talk about the I, these are the people. These are the optimistic. These are the energetic folks. The ones that these are the life of the party. They're always going to be focusing on people. They're always going to be encouraging others. They're the fun folks. If you're going to have a party, you want them to play in the games. You don't want a D to play in the games because they're going to have a boxing match or wrestling. You actually want, an I to play in something fun for everybody. They're going to be inspiring because you want to listen to them. They just connect with you. They kind of like to change things up. They don't like any routine. They want to go where they want to go. They also tend to not be very organized, but they are very creative. The higher the I in your score, the more verbal and persuasive a person is going to be. So a person that is a high I could probably sell snowblowers to people in the Sahara and ice makers to people in the Arctic. The lower the I, the more folks are going to want to see data and just communicate in a nonverbal way. The lower the I is going to be the people like, and whereas the I, they're going to tell you a story the entire time. Honestly, the things that I really love say that I should be a higher I than I am. But I like my solitude. So the things we love about those I's, they make friends very easily. They are liked by others. They're very likable. They're friendly. They're spontaneous. They're generous, and they are great entertainers. However, they tend to exaggerate whenever they're saying anything. They're going to make stuff up or make it bigger than it actually is. They're going to be disorganized. They're going to be forgetful. They probably don't even have a watch. Active listener, because they're listening for the fun stuff, not the important stuff. And we may think that they're a bit too talkative. Moving down, around the box now, we've got the S's. These are our steady. They are our loyal workers. They are our hard rowers. They are the backstage crew of the play. They are trustworthy. They are the ones that you don't have to ask if you're going to be there. You tell them what time the thing starts, and they are there an hour and a half early to make sure everything is open, everything's running. And when you try to thank them for that and you turn around, they're gone because they're doing something else that needs to be done. They're great listeners. They're amazing team players. They're very empathetic, but they don't like change. They like security. They like things to be the way they are. And if it's going to change, then they're just going to freak out. The higher the S, the more a person is resistant to change. The lower the S, the faster pace that they can handle, the more they like change. We know that we love S's because they're going to be our good friends. They're the ones that are there no matter what. There's a friend I was just talking to the other night on the phone. He's been one of my friends since grade school. And he is a high C and a high S. And back in grade school, if I would have told him the sky was purple and the moon was made out of celery, he would have believed it because I told him. He would have probably looked it up and pointed out the facts later, but he would not have confronted me on it. He would have said, well, you believe that? Go ahead with it. Now, they tend to be indecisive because they don't want to change things. To make a decision, you end up changing something. They prefer a slow and steady pace, and they are very possessive of the things they have. The programs that they own, they hold on to those because they're working and they're their systems. Then we come down to the C style, the compliant. I hate that word, by the way, but because compliant makes me think that of somebody that's willing to bend to whatever they're being told. I'm anything but that. But when they're talking compliant here, they're really meaning they know the rules, they follow the rules that they have to follow, but you have to know what rules to break and what rules can bend. That's where we're compliant. Seek perfection. I love doing woodwork. I love building it solid, and it drives me absolutely bonkers when I cut something on my saw, no matter how good the saw is, with just a little bit, got that little angle, and it drives me batty. Um, which it shouldn't, because the house that I grew up in didn't have a 90-degree angle anywhere. So seeks perfection, says that we're sensitive. I would say we're not. However, my wife would argue that there are things that I'm incredibly sensitive about, such as being told I'm wrong. We Because we are very accurate. We insist on accuracy. We're very analytical. We are the overthinkers. We are the overthinkers. We are the dreamers of dreams. We need facts, and we're very organized. The higher the C, the greater the tendency for somebody to follow the rules. The lower the C, they're going to probably ignore them. We love our C's because they're detail-oriented, logical, self-disciplined. Not as much as I should be, but they will research everything. You bring them a problem. If you're going to point out that they've got something wrong, you better have evidence, because they already have stacks and stacks of proof of why they believe a thing. They're very critical of themselves and others, though. So if they're not quite right, if somebody else, he shouldn't have said that. C's are the guys that watch movies and watch science fiction movies and say, "That's stupid. That would not have happened that way. They're not paying attention to the laws of physics." That's us. And when you're in the military and you're a C and you're watching Army movies, you're like, the patch is on the wrong shoulder, because you pay attention to those things. And it drives everybody else that's watching the movie crazy. We end up actually going through what we call analysis paralysis. We're looking at all of the options, all the permutations, all the possibilities, until we run out and go, yeah, all right, I finally have the answer. Good, the movie's over and we're at home. So it doesn't matter where you want to sit. So we tend to need to act a little bit faster on that. The thing about all of these personalities is they are all necessary on your team. They are all critical to work together. Each of them builds on each other's strengths and fights against each other's weaknesses, or makes the weaknesses irrelevant. When you're looking at the score, the higher the D, the more the decisions. The lower the D, they avoid them. Higher the I, they like to talk. Lower the I, they like to listen. Higher the S, they're resistant to change. Lower the S, they're open to change. Excuse me. And higher C, they're more compliant, more likely to follow the rules. Lower the C, rules are secondary, rules schmools. D's want things done the fastest way possible. I's want them done the most fun way possible. S's want it done the easiest way possible. And C's want it done the most efficient way possible. Whenever they're leading, a D will use force of character. They're going to have that position. They probably stand in the mirror doing the Superman pose for 3 minutes and 45 seconds, like you're supposed to if you want to build up your. When I saw that on a YouTube video once. I's will try to make things happen through verbal persuasion. S's, they're going to try to slow the pace. Let's look at what we have right now. And C's are going to try to solve gain control by gathering more information. D's tend to be too forceful. I's tend to talk too much. S's tend to be too submissive. And C's talk too little and talk way too intellectually. And if you want to influence one of us, if you want to influence a D, feed their ego. Yeah, they might even know you're doing it, and they love it. You want to influence an I, show approval for them. Show them that you accept them for who they are and what they're bringing. Give them rewards. If you want to influence influence an S, you have to build that trust with them. You have to show appreciation, and you have to express that what we want to do isn't going to change what you're doing. It's going to improve or build on what you have. So recognizing the foundations. And C's, accomplishment and accolades. The C may not want to be up front, but wants to be the best at the thing and wants to be recognized for their contribution there. But all of these members are important to have on the team. Slide, please. Great picture. And without all four types, we would not have this picture. We would not have what caused this picture. The tall man standing up in the front with the not wooden teeth, they were actually real teeth, ivory and horse teeth, George Washington. He is what we would probably consider to be a D. Visionary thinker, genuinely motivated to win, confident, bold, and daring, not afraid to meet challenges. But we have another D in this picture. If you look back in that corner, you see a dude on a horse, on a boat. He's on a horse on a boat. That means he really is in a hurry to get someplace, and he is trying to dominate over George. Now, we'll look at the I's. We've got a couple I's in here too. The charismatic, influencing, great communicators, and optimistics. The fellow with the flag right there, two of them right there. They're the ones that are communicating between each other. They're the ones that are holding the symbol. They're the ones carrying the nation, what symbolizes the nation there. And in any battlefield in Napoleonic up to World War I, where the flag was the big thing that you would carry and it was lines, when somebody carrying the flag got shot, somebody had to run up there and get that flag. And that's going to be the I. That's the person who wants to carry that banner. S's, we know them to be inclusive, supportive, caring, and great team builders. You see the S's back here, and up there, folks with the oars. They're the ones actually moving stuff along. They're the ones doing the work, and we need them. They're probably not being recognized, but if we didn't have them, the boat wouldn't go anywhere. And then we have the C's, the accurate analytical precision folks. They have a plan. And we have the fellow right beside George Washington looking out at the ice going, we need to go that way, looking at the facts, and the person in the back who's steering the boat and identifying where things need to go based off of what they understand. If we didn't have the D's, we wouldn't have George Washington. So we'd have no reason to cross the Delaware in the first place. If we didn't have the I's, we'd have no flags to carry on that boat. If we had no S's, we wouldn't have got out of the water. And if we had no C's, we would have gotten turned around and went back to New Jersey. So all of them are critical for each of those. Slide. I'll get to that in just a minute. There's some other things that on here that I want to talk about. When you're talking with each of these, if anybody in here, based off this description, kind of identify themselves as a D? All right. So I'm going to talk about if you are a this, a D, an I, an S, or a C, how you can really interact on that team with everybody else. If you're a D and you're working with another D, you better understand each other's boundaries. You got to know, where you're standing. Who has the authority and the expertise in the room? You need to know who's at the head of the table. And you need to acknowledge that. In a case where you have two equal Ds that are in a vie for power, have we ever been in a room like that? Where you've called it a bullfight? So acknowledge that situation probably going in. If you're a D and you're talking to an I, then lighten up. Lighten up a little bit, and you try to make it a little bit more enjoyable. Maybe not right to the topic. Remember to smile and let them know that you're accepting their presence, not just because they have to be there. If you're a D working with an S, don't be confrontational, because that'll seem like you're wanting to change things up. Recognize their great work. Be friendly, conversational, and supportive, but make sure that you emphasize the stability that we still have. And if you're a D working with a C, provide facts and details and expect answers and expect and answer questions. We're going to have questions. And if you don't have answers, that's fine, but we're going to ask you the questions anyway. And if you're going to ask us questions, a good solid C is going to say, if he doesn't have the answers or she doesn't have the answers, I will get that back to you, and then it'll tell you a time frame. My personal practice is I don't have that, but I'll get it to you in 24 to 48 hours or 12 to 24 hours, depending on the amount of work. But there's always going to be a time frame. I would rather, if you give me 10 minutes to do a task, again, tangent, sorry, 10 minutes to do a task, I will give you a 10-minute task. I'm not going to be late on it. You probably may not get the best work. If you give me a day to do a task, you're going to get a full day full day product. I'm not going to do a full day's work in 10 minutes unless it's a 10-minute job and you overcharge me. Now, if you're an I and you're working with a D, you're going to have to cut the chatter. You're going to have to be more direct and get to the point. If you're an I talking with another I, we're not going to get anything done because you're going to be having so much fun and you're going to forget that you're actually there to do something. So acknowledge the fact that you both want to have fun and make plans for later, then get back to work. If you're an I working with an S, acknowledge that they don't want to move too terribly fast. So you may have to slow down, be friendly, but don't push. And then if you're working with a C, don't be overly chatty. They're not going to want to talk. Prepare facts in advance. And even if they're facts related to people, understand that they're more likely going to be focusing on those facts. Give them time to make a decision. Don't push for something immediately. The C's are going to need that. If you're an S working with a D, you're going to need to have to step up and be a bit more assertive because that is how communication will be understood. You're going to have to deal with things more straightforward, and you may have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone in order to make the things happen if you're working with a D. If you're working with an I, it's fantastic to be friendly and be complimentary. Listen to their ideas. S's and I's actually make a fantastic team. An S and an I, one's fun, one's solid, and there's always the fun friend and the solid friend. The solid friend is always the designated driver, and the I that's the life of the party. If you're an S working with another S, we may get things done, but it's going to be slow because we know our little areas. We know our boxes that we're working in. And if you're an S working with a C, enter through the door of logic and do not let your relationship or your feelings get hurt through the process. Again, you know your processes, so explain why you have the processes and explain the output. And if you're a C working with a D, be direct, be brief, and focus on the results. Communicate with the bullet point emails, not facts. Bottom line up front. If you're a C working with an I, be friendly, complimentary, interactive. You may have to take a step back on them facts for just a little bit in order to build a road in. If you're an S, focus on the friendship first. Again, the C's, they want them facts. The S wants the stability, and nothing is more stable than facts. So that is something you can actually work together on with a perspective. And if you're a C working with a C, enjoying trading facts, but be very, very careful not to go all full nerd Dragon Con deep dive. I was at Dragon Con last week. I loved it. I'm going back. We already bought our tickets for next year. Because I am not a recovering nerd. I am a proud nerd. So there's another analogy I liked using. The George Washington came with this presentation. An orange. Has anybody heard about the organizational problem of I have an orange and 4 people, and all of them want the orange? So if all of them want the orange, and I only have 1 orange, I can cut it into 4 pieces. Cut it into quarters and each get 1 of them. None of them are happy. because none of them are getting what they want. You have to kind of figure out what each of your people want. If you have a D, they probably want, I had that, I'm going to try to go off memory with this one. If you have a D, they probably want to use the skin and scrub some stuff. They want to make some action happen. So you give them the peel. You want an I, they want the fun. They want to get something out of it. They want to just get the juice. So you let them squeeze the juice out. You have the C, they want the pulp. They want something that they can actually put into a fruit salad or some kind of a jam. And if you have the S, if you have the C, they want to be able to use the zest off of that rind so that they can light the fire and be able to measure exactly how many parts per million you have in the citrus. Now, if you gave all 1/4, nobody gets enough of anything. But if you cut it into those, know what each of them want, you can give each of them an entire orange worth of what they want. So it's the important part of understanding what you're working with. And that all also comes back to stories. Because if you understand a person's story, you can understand where you are in that story. You understand where they came from. You understand what causes them to do things. Each of these types have a dominant fear and that's the stick. That's the thing they're going to avoid. For example, the Ds, their dominant fear is being challenged, or not being challenged. Their dominant fear is being taken advantage of. They're going to stand bold because if they don't, then they're just going to get bowled over. That is their dominant fear. So their behaviors, their story comes from the avoidance of being taken advantage of. I's, rejection. Their behavior comes from the story of avoiding rejection. Whatever they can do to avoid rejection, they will do. Keeping that in mind as you're working with I's. S's, I've beaten that drum a little bit, security. They are terrified of losing security. And that is their behavior out of that. And the C's, we are absolutely terrified of being proven wrong or called out. And if we're going to be called out, we're going to have all them facts because we have to have some form of background on that. These are our dominant fears. And if we know how to help our people avoid those fears and set an environment that matches their story, then we can actually build that one-on-one relationship with them and lead them in a one-on-one way, what I call micro leadership. And if you do that, then you get to be part of their story. People will always listen to what you have to say. They will see what you do, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And how you act and pull them into their story and step into their story is what makes them feel a certain way. They'll never forget it. So you get to determine whether, by how you make them feel, whether you are the villain, the hero, or the villager. Sometimes it calls for a hero. So wrapping up on the test, the Maxwell assessment, and this kind of gets to your point, the different applications of the Maxwell DISC assessment. We take individual assessments. We can, if you take an entire team, like we have our team, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have everybody here, and we all take that. And then we have a training session and we get together and we kind of have a powwow with a facilitator and say, all right, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? And we go through a more detailed version of what I just talked about so that we can understand, oh, Dave is a C. You know what? That makes perfect sense now. And when you learn that somebody is a particular type, you end up going, that makes so much sense. And so we have those. Of the individual assessments, we have a couple different types. We have student and career, ones that are, and student success, both focused on high school to college students. And the difference really is in the, like I said, the backside of the report, because the Maxwell DISC report, you have your test. It has, this is your score. These are your different graphs. And then it goes through page by page on how you apply this in a given situation. The information in the backside for the student and career and student success are focused on that kind of work. We have them focused on entrepreneurs, people working and starting up businesses. Excuse me. We have sales professionals and sales leaders, because the sales leader needs to be a little bit different than the person on the floor doing the sales. And all of that works. We also do group assessments. So not only do we have the individual assessments, but then we do a collaborative kind of slap all them on together, and we look at what your team looks like. We usually have a kind of a big circle and it's cut into a pie, quarters, and every combination on this like a map. And if you have 100 people and it's kind of spread out evenly, you got a good balanced group. I was working with a school up in South Carolina, and if they were a tire, they were flat because they were all down in the down to the CS area. It's like, boom, and all but one of them, and the one of them wasn't the one in charge. So that's that makes it a little bit challenging. But understanding that, if you have one of those flat tire organizations, not saying it's a bad organization, but that's just the graph, then you know what the kind of environment you need to set for your people. And then the last thing on here, which is actually new to me, I'm still learning how to use it, but we have benchmarking tools, which actually takes the DISC and 3 other assessments and puts them together. If you're getting ready to hire somebody, you look at the incumbent that you know is leaving. Go, hey, Jane, could you take this test for us so we can identify your replacement easier? And you fill that out. Maybe somebody else that's working with Jane that is filling that same kind of role. And you get a small sample set, and now you have a baseline for, these are the kind of scores that I'm expecting for somebody filling this role effectively. Now, if your person filling the job that's leaving is kind of a turd muffin, then you probably don't want to find out what they have. But if you have them take the test, you can go, these kind of scores we want to avoid. But once you have those and you have your benchmark, then as people come in for interviews, they make it past that process, you have them take these tests. And then we analyze those tests and say, this person, according to these points, is actually a fantastic fit for what you said your benchmark in this job is. Now, when you come for the in-person interview, here's some things you want to ask them. You want to focus in this area of information. You want to talk about their experiences here. You might be interested in this, but here's where you probably want to bridge a gap. And that's the kind of stuff that comes with our benchmarking tests. So useful for HR and training opportunities. And slide. That kind of brings us to my wrap up on this. So the entire principle of what I prefer to teach and how I prefer to lead is that one-on-one. And everybody has those levers and buttons because everybody has a story. And if you understand the levers and buttons, then you can lead people the way that they need to be led. There's a very, very thin line between manipulating and influencing. Manipulating, you're influencing them for your benefit. Influencing, you're influencing them for their benefit and maybe yours. Influencing always puts them first. Manipulating always puts you first. So understanding the levers and the buttons to help them. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle. Everybody, like we looked at George Washington's boat. Everybody's important in that. Since everybody has that place or has that piece of the puzzle, put them in place. Everybody deserves to be led well. So the better you understand people, the better you understand your people. And that's understand people with a capital P and then your people with a capital P, capital YP, then you have more opportunity to lead them. If you were a supervisor, boss, or manager, you can leverage assessments like the DISC to understand your team to empower them to act within their strengths and to not stop building the relationship. If you are not a boss, leader, or manager, you can leverage your assessment to understand yourself and your teammates and figure out where you can help them. If they're left-handed and you're right-handed and you're on the wrong sides of the boat ain't going anywhere. Support your boss and your team, filling in for their weaknesses and substituting for their fears, and never stop building their relationships. Sense a theme there, right? Slide. Back to the beginning here. Micro leadership or herding your penguins. I love penguins, kind of a thing. I love these icebergs. That's why we had the penguins in the beginning. And in this situation, we have 4 different flavors of penguins. Each of them has a story because everybody has a story. Every story has those 4 parts: people, places, problems, and processes. Every story is connected by one or more of those 4 parts. Either our story is connected by people, or we are in the same place, or we face the same problems, or we've come up with the same processes. And the more of those things that we have in common, the closer our stories and the stronger our relationship will be. Everybody writes the best story they can with what they have at the time. A lot of times we expect too much of people based off of us. We expect us out of people. And we expect them to act the way that we will act because we have the experiences we have, because we have the resources we have. And by resources, I do not mean money. I don't mean tools. I don't mean books, buildings, or cars. I mean time, education, common sense, patience, and any number of the other fruits of the Spirit. Those are our resources. With those, we can build anything else we got. Both writing their own story. You could write my story. It ain't my story then. It's your story. And if I'm complaining about my story, guess who has the pen? Me. It's my job to fix it. But I can only fix it with the resources that I have. So as leaders, we try to give people more resources, more training, more of our time. And through that, we build our connection and become part of the story. See, it all kind of weaves in together. Slide. Oh, now we've come to the question part. The QR code on there is, goes to my calendar. If you're interested in having more conversations about that, that goes right to my Google. And very involved with Masonic community and work and various other family things, but the times that are free are on there. So that's the best way to ensure even getting that 45 minutes just to sit down and have a conversation. I'm embarrassed to say that I occasionally give that to friends that I haven't talked to in a while, not because I want them to make an appointment, because I honestly want to give them the time so I can focus when I'm talking to them. And I feel so bad doing that because I don't like, however, necessary evil. And then my email on there for Wiley Leadership Solutions, that gets forwarded to my personal email, and that's the one that my wife is tracking for all of our bills and stuff too. So at this time, I will now stop, grab something to drink, and what are your questions?
All right, we can try to. Oh, wait, we got a hot one. All right, Mike.
Oh, hello. Oh, sorry. Yeah, they kind of jostled around in the car on the way here.
I should have paid more attention.
So my question is, depending on the version that you take versus the version that we take at work, you also have the adapted versus natural on that test as well? Versus like adapted style versus natural style?
Yes. In fact, that may even be the phrasing we use, but it's the how I view myself, how I act under stress, and how I act, or how I believe I'm supposed to act in the environment that I'm in.
So, okay. Yeah. So in that case, what would be the normal spread that you would want to see on a general folks in your organization? As far as, do you want them all grouped together in a solid spot, or would you like them more spread out?
In the healthiest organization possible, everybody is going to have a wide spread of something. It's going to be up here and down here, or up here, down here, and up here. And the more people that you have along that center line, because we have we have the baseline, and it's either something above it or below it. The closer they are to the line between those three, like the C's up here, the S's up here, that indicates either you're trying too hard and you're trying to out-test the test, or you're in a high stress environment and you don't know what's expected of you. So you're trying to be everything to all people. Ideally, in a perfect environment, everybody is going to have pretty well diametrically, very clear indications.
So in our organization, where we work at, we tend to all sort of focus on the support side of the wheel. But most of us are also very much in the same quadrant of the S or C or I usually.
Yeah.
But so like for myself, I'm down in the very bottom of the support section for both my adapted and my natural.
Your deep support down in the basement.
But I just didn't know if so. Like I've heard different ways of interpreting that, whether or not you wanted to have that spread out to where like you want to have your adapted, which is how you have adapted over time to work, to be separated from where your natural stance would be.
Yeah. If you have everybody in one quadrant, it's going to be hard to be able to function on all four cylinders, because it's heavy in one place. You know, one tire has 45 pounds of air pressure, the other three have 7, and it's going to be difficult to get anywhere. Now, people probably acknowledge, all right, my role is to do this. And through learned behaviors or adaptive behaviors, like I know that I need to be more of a D in this, and they can be that, and they can fulfill the roles. It's probably exhausting for them, but they're willing to do it. There's a couple different of the combinations we talked about, and each of these has pages of commentary on the strengths of this particular combination or that combination. And there is a specific combination of ISC, any of those three, but with, as long as it's off deep enough, that actually, my wife is an ISC. She is very, very supportive. She's in the sub basement for support. Like she's holding the entire building up. And she is also a detailed planner. Every time we've moved from Washington State to DC, she had every day planned, every stop planned, and every day was, if we're having a good day, we're going to go this far. If we're having a medium day, we're going to go this far. If we're having a short day, we're going to go this far. And here's where all the hotels, restaurants, gas stations, rest stops, Harley dealerships, that's where all of these are, against every single one of them, from Seattle to Columbia, Maryland. That kind of detailed planning. And when she's with her group of people, she's bubbly as heck. So that combination of ISC, when the parameters are very clear, as in she knows her left and right limit, she can take charge and lead the entire army, so long as she knows her left and right limit. And it's when she doesn't know that she falls into the security side and doesn't want to move. So as her husband, I always do what I can to try to give her, when we're doing family stuff, this is where we're at. Any questions? Nope. I'm out your way now. So, personal story. What else?
So, Chris, what is your affiliation with Maxwell? Are you one of their facilitators or something?
I am a John Maxwell certified leadership trainer, coach, and speaker. That is my official title, and it does not fit on a business card. I have tried. I am also a disc consultant. John Maxwell's team has two different levels. There's disc trainer and then disc consultant. Disc consultant has the ability to actually do those benchmark tests, group tests, and things like that. Disc trainer can do the individual tests, can talk about the group analysis of it, but can't actually teach it in an environment. Within the John Maxwell system, there's kind of a couple different tracks you can take: speaker, coach, trainer, or business. I think now they've kind of mixed it up since I've been to the certification event, which is a fantastic. I've never been in a more positive environment in my entire life. Can't say that I knew anything going out of it that I didn't know going into it, but I knew that I wanted to do more of it. So at least I left there better. I've always been interested in being able to be up here and talk, but I also want to stand next to somebody and help them be better. So I want to be a coach. And part of coaching is training. So if I were taking a test on those 4 things, I would be, center line, because I'm trying to be all things to all people until sticks, but I enjoy doing all of it.
John, Patrick, Keisha, anyone you got? All right, Patrick, lead us off.
So this is a personal experience question. Me being on the people relationship oriented side, along the I and the S side, with an individual with whom I work, they very much reside in the C portion. And so many times with work.
And by the way, the C person completely appreciates that you did not have a hanging preposition.
And so a bunch of the interactions that we have is, when the C person approaches me, it's task oriented, it's results driven, it's all about the work. And then through that conversation, they say, "Oh, I forgot to say good morning." For me, being more so a relational person, I kind of lead off with the small talk, ask them how they're doing, so on and so forth. When I'm looking at myself, and going to approach different people, I know how to, I try to understand the people that I'm going to. So do I need to be more relational? Do I need to be, like you said, those bullet points, just get to the point and,
right,
go about my way. But from the reverse side, how would you speak to this individual to make it more relatable from my perspective? Because for me, it's easier for me to say, stop the small talk, just get to the details, versus for them, they just go into the details. They're not really in tune with how I'm feeling or how I'm doing on a day-to-day. That small talk is just kind of out the window. So
if I think I understand your question, let me restate.
Yep.
As a highly relational person, how do you talk to the numbers guy? How do you relate better to them in a interpersonal interaction?
correct. So when I go to them, I'm more relational, but when they come to me, there is no relational. So how would, unless they're doing self-assessment, they don't know, they're not in tune with how I would operate. And so, lack of better words, it's easier, for me, if I were to go and talk to them, just get to the facts, let's keep it moving, since I know how they operate. But for them coming to me, how would you advise it? I can't just say, correct.
So the first question I would have to ask, are they aware of their kind of approach, and do they want to get better?
That's why I mentioned the self-assessment.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just being honest. I think they are aware of their style, but they may not be in tune with other individuals' styles. So,
all right.
it's hard for me in conversation to say, well, ask me how I'm doing before we get to, business.
So you honestly, a thing you could try, and it's almost being, since they're going to be blunt about, oh, almost bumped the mute, being blunt about come here, let's do a role play on that. You be them.
Okay, the C person.
Yeah, the C person.
All right, well, it's Monday morning. Oh, I see we got these notes here. We need to do such and such, and once we run this report, we'll need to analyze the data, and we need to have this by 24 hours. And so
Yes, the weekend was rough. Thanks for asking.
oh,
No worries, no worries. I know this is important to you. I had a rough weekend on this. I understand it's important. Here's where I'm at it. If you have a minute, later, want to grab some coffee or something, if you have time. But got the facts, and we're good. And basically forcing it in. If they're going to be blunt about facts without being personable, force personable. I'm fine, thanks. Oh, you didn't ask. And that comes across as sarcastic, but you know who really appreciates sarcasms? C's. So that's a way to get it. Because if you confront them with you're kind of a jerk, then they're going to be more of a jerk, because then they need, how am I a jerk? And then they're going to want you to provide facts and an argument about that. And they can't quantify the relationship. So good. You coming with a 24-hour thing, we'll reset. That's the fourth time we've came by and not even asked how my day was. I'm doing okay. I hope you're doing fantastic. And here's the information you're looking for. Starting with the end. Yeah, start with, they want numbers, give them numbers. Just not the ones they're looking for just yet.
thanks.
Keisha, John. All right. Patrick, you helped light the fire.
We have a highly engaged group here. It's a small group, but they're into it.
It's like 6 times bigger than it was last time I was here.
I know. We are growing by leaps and bounds. Go for it, John.
So I like what Mike was saying about the natural versus adaptive, and thinking about that. Is it possible for your natural to change based on the season of life? Because I heard you kind of talk about like the empty nester, and kind of wanted to hear you kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Yes, we all evolve, we all change. However, the degree to which we are a thing is what changes, not necessarily the thing itself. Like I said, back to the causes, the bases for our behavior, our hereditary, our experiences after age 8, and our role models up to age 12. That, if we're past the age of 13, they can adjust, but they've got a pretty good anchor at that point. I'd mentioned the Myers-Briggs. I've taken that several times over the last 15 years. And while my answers have been kind of different on each, I have been an INTJ every time. Every time I've taken the disc, I've been maybe a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, but I've either been a C or a CS variant. So it's always been facts, and I enjoy a good party. I enjoy throwing a good party, but because I treat it like a task, I put on a roll. We throw a great Halloween party every year at my house, and it's every time we do is some kind of a theme, and I have to warm up. And I tell people, doors open at 6. If you're there at 5:45, stay outside, because I need that 6 o'clock. Used to be an actor in high school. I'm like, all right, curtain opens at 6. Hey, welcome to, and then it's all of that. And it's a role, no longer personality. It's not that I'm being fake. It's that I'm forcing the energy. And then that's, if it's on a Friday, I might be good on Monday. I enjoy it because I enjoy the people that are at the house. I enjoy spending the time. I enjoy the details we put into the party. But so yes. Again, I'm rambling on a story. I'm sorry. I like stories.
No, that answered it. So I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think Keisha has been inspired as well.
I would say that I'm an I. And I can be so upbeat and friendly. And sometimes it's over the top, I think. And I think at times I'm not taken seriously. Or I've had people who felt like they could just say things to me and get away with it because
you're
I'm
friendly.
so friendly. And well, the issue is that I'm friendly, but then there's another side. And I need to know how to handle, I need like a transition from here instead of like just coming off.
So,
like,
so I may need new glasses, but near as I can tell from here, you're human. Then that's going to happen. But I guess the question I'd have to ask before I go any further is, so Bubbly, you feel like you're getting taken advantage of sometimes because people are taking advantage of your niceness by being more.
or like I'm a pushover,
Yeah.
Like, you know, like with my children and they play sports and I'm usually like the nice mom. And then their friends will think that I'm so nice. They can just get away with anything with me. And it's like, no, you can't do that.
And the key there is just the consistency and the being willing to know where your boundaries are, know where the lines are, and then defend them jealously. Defend them with that energy. Defend them with as a cheerleader if you need to, but hit people in the face with a pom-pom if they get out of they try to cross your boundary. Like all happy and they say something they ought not to say or do something not to do, like, I'm nice but not that nice, get over here. And you can still do it with a smile, and maybe it's acknowledging when it happens a little bit earlier and going, I'm going to start tightening it down, because if you crank it down immediately, it's not going to work either, because they're
It's often shocking too.
Yeah.
I didn't want to shock you. But yeah,
So, and you like conversation, right?
I do.
Then a great way to go with that is, hey, you know what? I know we've been having fun, but that's not cool. Could you tell me why you did that?
Mhm.
And people don't want to talk about why they did something, and that will be worse than telling them don't do it. Actually, it'd be more effective than telling them don't do it. Go, you know what? That wasn't cool. Why'd you do that? Could you explain to me what happened there? What's the story behind that? I didn't. And then the next time, if it happens again, hey, there it is again. Is that a pattern? Could you tell me more about that? And eventually, they're going to be like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to do it.
Open it up again to the folks online. Anybody feeling brave?
One of the things I told my brother, actually, he was working with a guy who was very, very aggressively rude. We grew up in rural Pennsylvania, and it's a very blue collar shop in which he works. And the guy is very, very, very rural, we'll say, and also very aggressively rude. And my brother can take a lot, and he's very, very patient, but it's really grates on him. I said, Mike, next time is that just interrupt him in the middle of the sentence and just look him in the eye and go, who hurt you? And he's not going to want to talk about it, and he's going to stop doing what he's doing. Same kind of thing. Start the conversation. Why are we doing that? What else?
Well, I don't think we're having anyone online. I'll, I guess, try to help wrap it up. Bit of a CSI, heavy on the S, negative, if there is negative D off the page, like, I don't even know what that letter is. That's right. But I do happen to work with Mike in this group. Yeah, part of the flat tire that we happen to be. And we just lost the one heavy D, and we're about to lose the other one who's also heavy D. So this is going to be very interesting. I find myself having to adapt to D more often than is comfortable, but that's okay. So I think instead of just making a statement, I'll get to a question eventually. So I feel like a lot of this is like all things, the measurement is not the thing itself. That's
not
all
the-
good
yeah.
science. And I think a lot of the questions have hovered around that as well. Is these are all sort of like strategies, if I'm hearing this correctly.
Yeah.
Strategy to take yourself outside of that natural warm blanket that you find yourself in and dealing with other people. And it comes back to what you said about it's all about the people in the end, it's about those relationships, right?
Yeah.
So you have a good strategy that helps us keep that in mind when we leave here tonight.
The biggest thing, and it comes back to those big four things that I put on there. The best strategy is looking at everybody in terms of a story. There's a story behind what they're doing. Their behavior is because of something. Their behavior is most likely to avoid something painful. And whether it's being taken advantage of, being losing security, being rejected, or being challenged, on your facts, their behavior is coming as part of that story. Getting to know that story as best you can, so that you can not necessarily predict what's going on, but you can go with the flow of the story. There's a joke that we've may have all heard. It's different for each person. I'm not going to tell a joke, but everybody has some jokes that you've heard like 50 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, but it's funny every time because it's a good story. It's a good joke. I'm an amateur magician. I love watching magic tricks that I know how they work. And if they're done well, I love it. If you understand a story, it's whether you can predict it or not, you can still enjoy it and work with it. So looking at things from the story and helping build the story. Help them be the hero. Nobody purposely is the villain.
Well, thank you for that. I guess last question, if I may. Last cosplay at Dragon Con.
So this was
your last cosplay at Dragon Con, or do you go and not actually
so this was our first year. It was our first year
no
going.
kidding, okay.
But my wife went as Kaylee from Firefly.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
My son went as a kind of assassin from Assassin's Creed. He didn't have the jacket because I told him it was going to probably be too warm. I was right, but he still wanted to have the jacket. So he got irritated with Dad. Next year, we're going to do better. Actually, we're doing the Ren Fair in North Carolina doing that. My daughter went as Sal from the video game Sally Face. It's a dark video game, but it has a very, very niche following. There's like only 2 others that were there, but so many people recognized her. And when we did a AACE-CSRA several months ago, she had her picture taken with like 9, 10 people. And I went as a character from a book that I'm writing, so it wasn't even a known thing. I have one nonfiction book called The Lobster's Guide to Herding Penguins, and I'm working on a fiction book, a urban metaphysical fantasy kind of thing. I'm about 2/3 of the way through writing it, and I'm expecting to have it published by next year. So I was kind of leaning forward in the foxhole.
there you go. There you go.
And that way, when I told people that, hey, I'm this character, who's that? It's from a book that hasn't been written yet. Well, how do you know about it? Because I know the author.
Very nice. All right. Well, Brad, I guess I'll turn it back over to you for the closing then.
All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Chris, for coming to speak to us. I had a whole introduction ready to read for you, but you just kind of got up on stage and went for it.
Sorry.
So if you would indulge me, I'd love to read this thing because you've got some good stuff backing you up.
Go ahead.
You'll recognize this because I think you wrote it. When you go somewhere you haven't been, you want a tour guide, not a travel agent. Would you agree tonight that we heard from a tour guide? I agree. One has been there so many times they know the territory. The other read a book about it. I think you've been there. You've demonstrated. Tonight's speaker holds a PhD in business management with leadership emphasis from Capella University, a master's in organizational leadership from Brandman University, a project management professional certification from PMI, and having retired after 22 plus years as an officer in the U.S. Army. He focuses on building vertical and horizontal relationships within organizations to improve team performance and individual job satisfaction. He incorporates the Maxwell DISC assessment with universal storytelling patterns and unique mental models to convey a unique approach to organizational influence applicable to managers and employees alike. Join with me thanking our speaker, Chris A.C. Wiley. Thank you, Chris.
It's been a pleasure.
We really appreciate you. This is tour number 2. Will you come back next year?
Absolutely. Because as you could probably guess, this felt a lot better than last year.
This went great. This went great.